own security guys, and like a lot of the reserves are basically like they'll take the young guys who usually do security in a certain place and put them to the front. And then the older guys, we're talking people in their 40s, 50s, 60s and up, they'll come out and they'll get into uniform. So, like some of those guys are a lower priority, but like they want to have the gear. And so they don't need the highest recommendation of gear. They can use whatever they can get. Versus, people on the front, they can only use specific models and stuff like that. Okay.
Yeah, my nephew, his wife's brother and cousin were out in California with them, visiting them when the war started. So both the brother and the cousin went back, but before they did, they bought, the brother bought body armor for himself, but the cousin didn't have the money, so my nephew Jeb went and bought the body armor for him before he went back.
Nice. Well, like Ezra was here last night, so he told me that his brother is now, part of the security team of their kibbutz that he lives in. So he asked me, he said, hey, can you find me some armor to send me? So he's trying to find ways to do that. Because basically there was a lot in Israel, but just all sold out. And then in America, a lot of places sold out. Okay. So we're going to go chapter 8 here. This is, again, some more math, and it only gets more complex. But anyways, the Chodesh of the Levana, a lunar month is, we said, 29 days and a half, and we said there's 29, 12, 7, 93. That's what we said. 29 days and a half, 12 hours, and 793 chalakim. And you cannot say Rosh Chodesh is, right now is Rosh Chodesh. The new day of the new month has to be a full day. As it brings in a verse here. The verse says we don't count hours for the month. We count days. Therefore, since there's 29 and a half, some months are going to be 29, and some months are going to be 30 days, right? Because we have that half day, which adds up. So even though the month is 29 and a half, some months will be 29 days. You'll see, like when we do Rosh Chodesh, when we daven here and we say Hallel, there's some months where we only do it for one day, and some months where we do it for 2 days, right? So a 2-day means the Rosh Chodesh is the previous month was a 30-day month, and Rosh Chodesh is 2 days. And 1 day means that Rosh Chodesh was 29 days. And so anyways, if it was 29 and a half exactly, right? So then you would just have every other month. So you're 12 hours, right? Every other month you have 30 days. So you 29 day, 30 day, 29 day, 30 day, right? If it was 12 hours exactly, because those 12 hours times 2 equals a day. However, because there's 793 seconds, which we said is, or did we say? Yeah, I think that's what we said. So because of that, what we need to have is we need to gather those things, and some need to be full, and some and in different years they have different amounts of days. We can't just say, oh, the first month is 30, second month is 29. First month, those extra seconds, which are minutes, they add up, right, and they cause more days. So therefore, okay, so. So now the 30th day, this is what we make in Rosh Chodesh in this calculation. If the previous month was 29 days, this is number 4. Then the next month will be 30 days. And then you will have one day. Then you will have so 29 days. That means the next day is Rosh Chodesh. Then 31 days later will be the next Rosh Chodesh, and therefore, what we do is we have some months have 2 days Rosh Chodesh and some days have 1 day Rosh Chodesh. Here's the calculation. Tishrei, the month that we just passed, that is always a 30-day. Tevis is always 29 days. From Tevis on, you go 1 full and one 29 days. For example, if Tavis is 29 days, then Shvat, the next month, will be full, will be 30. Adar will be 29. Nisan will be full. Iyar will be missing. Sivan will be full. Tammuz will be missing. Av will be full. El will be missing. Now, in a leap year, we're in a leap year. So again, a leap year means we add a whole extra month. So Passover is going to be later this year.
Whole extra month?
Whole extra month. Because again, we need the Passover to be in spring. So in order for Passover to be in spring, what happens is the lunar year is about 10 days shorter than the solar year. So every year, the lunar year falls behind, right? And Passover moves 10 days earlier than spring. So every couple of years, we said every cycle, there's several years, 7 years, which we add a whole extra month. So this year we add a whole extra month. So that causes that we start Tavis, which is the fourth month, is a chaser. That's a 29 day. So then the next month is going to be 30. And then the next month, which is going to be the leap month, is going to be 29.
So where do we add that extra month?
So we add that extra month before Passover, the month before Passover.
The month before Passover.
Yeah, so basically what we gain by adding the month before Passover is Passover will be in spring. If we would just follow the regular, if we wouldn't add the month, then Passover would...
It keeps going earlier and earlier and earlier, and it gets up to early December, then all of a sudden it's back down to
Correct.
the end of December.
Correct. So like one thing that...
Oh, that makes a lot of sense.
One thing that's really rare is you have Hanukkah on the earliest type of years, might be fall out on Thanksgiving.
See, I never noticed that about Passover. I only noticed it about Hanukkah.
Well, so Passover is going to be a little bit later, a little bit earlier, but we're all like this year is a late Passover because it's almost as late as Passover can get. Rosh Hashanah next year is going to be as late as it can get because we're adding extra month to push off Passover. But if Passover gets too early, it falls out in February, then what happens is it's going to be before spring. And the Torah says always you have to make sure that the month of Passover falls out in spring. So that's how that works. Okay, so you have 2 months which are Mar Cheshvan and Kislev. Sometimes they are full and sometimes they're lacking. Sometimes both of them will be lacking, and sometimes both of them you'll have one lacking, one full. And a year that has these 2 months full, this is called they're called complete. And the year that has these 2 months lacking, these are called a lacking year. And the year that has Mar Cheshvan lacking, Kislev Male is called a regular year. Okay, so there are certain months which are always full, and there's certain months which are always lacking, and then there's certain months which it depends on the year and different things, depends on the cycle. Okay, if you want to know if it's full or complete, this is what you should do. You should first know the day which is called Rosh Hashanah, as we said in the 7th chapter, and we should know when Rosh Hashanah falls out, and we should know when the next Rosh Hashanah is going to fall out, and calculate the amount of days between them. And if you find between them, okay, so now what you do is you should know the day of Rosh Hashanah and the Rosh Hashanah afterwards. And how many days are between these Rosh Hashanah? If you'll find 2 days between the Rosh Hashanah dates, then the year will be lacking. And if you will find 3 days, then it will be one Cheshvan will be lacking and Kislev will be full. And if you'll find 4 days, then it will be all complete. So this year Rosh Hashanah was on Friday night, Saturday, right? Next year Rosh Hashanah is going to be on Wednesday night, Thursday, Friday. So there's 2 days in between, so we could figure out how to calculate the months this year. When do we say this? When it's a regular year. However, if it's a leap year, if you find between those 2 days 4 days, then they will be lacking, and if it will be 5 days, then it will be regular, and if it will be 6 days, it will be complete. For example, so now he wants to go through the examples here. We'll just finish up. For example, you want to know the order of the month, and Rosh Hashanah is, so let's say Rosh Hashanah was on a Thursday, and it's a regular year, and next Rosh Hashanah is going to be on Monday. Comes out, there's 3 days in between. You know that this year, the 2 months which we're not sure about, those are going to be, one will be a full month and one will be a lacking month. And if the Rosh Hashanah and afterwards is going to be on Tuesday, then this year, both of them will be full months. And if the the next Rosh Hashanah will be on Shabbos, and this year Rosh Hashanah is on Shabbos, the year after will be on Tuesday, if there will be a lacking year, and that's how you can calculate for a Shana Mubarak, a complete year, a year, a leap year. There's a symbol, a mnemonic you can remember, and these are built on these calculations. And these are any year that Rosh Hashanah is on Tuesday, then Monday night, Tuesday, then the year will be Kisidron. You will have one of the 2 months that we said fluctuate, won't be complete and won't be lacking. And if Rosh Hashanah will be on Shabbos or on Monday, it will never be Kisidron. It will never be a 1 month lacking, 1 month complete. And if Rosh Hashanah is on Thursday, if it's a regular year, it's not possible for them to be lacking. And if it's complete, it's not possible for the months to be according to this cheshbon, to be one and one. Okay. Anyways, it's kind of confusing to work out. Luckily, we have calendars to look at that we can, just look at the calendar and see.
App for that.
Oh, there's apps also. Yeah, so all these things are
I have a
programmable.
great app for this. Every day I look at it, so that's how I know what to read in the Tehillim.
Yeah.
Tehillim and whether we're going to do a takan.
Tachna, yeah. No, yeah, there's definitely calculated. It's are all made. I used to have a friend who used to be able to actually program it. Like he was always messing with those the basic opinion. But when you go on Chabad.org, you can look at the bottom at the additional times and see like there's a whole another rabbit hole of different opinions and everything like that. So yeah, but thankfully we have those programs. Okay, we're in Tanya chapter 35. Okay, so we're holding at, there's like a shaded area. It's called a Haggah. If you give me your phone for a second, I'll find it for you.
Yeah, I'm losing all of the links that I had because
So you can
what's that? They keep going up and higher.
you can Google chapter 35 Tanya.
Do that again.
If you just Google chapter 35 Tanya in English, or chapter 35 Tanya, you'll have it in a second. A Beinoni is somebody who basically is really good at self-control, and he's a perfect person. The only thing is he's aware that his emotions and are selfish. His emotions and his aspirations inside, he has selfish aspirations. And the Tanya says that basically the average Joe will most likely not be able to get rid of that. They'll be able to rid themselves of bad habits. They'll be able to rid themselves of... So the way it puts it in Tanya is it's like you'll be able to get rid of actually doing it, actually acting, thinking, but wanting something bad, you can't get rid of that want. You can just distract yourself from that. You can invest yourself in other more important things, but inside, you might not change that. That's the way humans are. So the Alter Rebbe said that can be, that can be hard for people their whole life to be a good Jew. And they get older and they're like, wow, I still once in a while fall, make a mistake, or I still have an animal within. And that's really what we're talking about in the Tanya here, the animal within. It doesn't go away. In the Tanya earlier, it says it might go away if God decides to take it away, which is a rare occurrence, and because God will need you for a mission. But usually you're inborn with this whole system, which is selfish, right? And what we said, selfish doesn't necessarily mean you're a nasty person. It just means you have self-interest. And as a Jew, you're trying to work out of self-interest. You're trying to serve God. You're trying to make your interest what God wants from you.
Well, I think you have to learn how to live your life with that self-interest, with God and your family.
Well, so ultimately,
in that context. Right?
So I'll give you an example. Later on in the Tanya, the Alter Rebbe says everyone wants to take care of their family naturally. He said that's not the ultimate. The ultimate is you want to take care of your family because God has a mitzvah to take care of your family. So the Alter Rebbe says, there are times when you put your family first, when you shouldn't necessarily put your family first, because maybe you're giving luxury to your family, but you need to help somebody with basics. So there's what to talk about there. So like in other words, what we ultimately want to do is we want to disconnect from ourselves, from our own, and say, okay, God, what do you want me to do? Like, so God might say, hey, I want you to take care of your family. Now, until now, you were doing it because it was your instinct. And instinct is a gray area because once you follow instinct, you might go off and do something really bad actually because you're following instinct. So God wants us to go and say, no, God, I want to open. I don't want to do anything except for what you want from me. Now, so the Alter Rebbe is saying, here's you have a guy doing that for years, and he still feels he has instinct inside of him. So he's like, wait, I'm not really growing. So the Alter Rebbe in this chapter says, no, you are really growing. And he brings a Zohar, and the Zohar says that once someone was walking and asked a child, what did you study today? And the child said, I studied this verse that says, this pasuk, it says that a wise person has his eyes in his head. His eyes in his head. So the Zohar says, well, what does that mean? Eyes in his head? So everyone has their eyes in their head. Where else would you have your eyes?
But I think that's more of a metaphor than it is.
Well, so the Zohar says what it means is every person, the Shekhinah, God's presence resides on top of him. And there's some people who look down or look into themselves, look in their instinct. But a wise person, he's always looking at God. Now, the Zohar says, here's a metaphor. You have the Shekhinah, you have God above you, and the goal is to always look at God, right? Not have any self-interest because you're yourself, but your only self-interest is what God wants. So, it's interesting because when it talks about self-defense, a lot of people are very nervous about self-defense, and they'll say like, you have to take care of yourself or protect yourself. Never again, right? Now, Judaism says you don't have to protect yourself unless there's a mitzvah, right? So there's a mitzvah to protect yourself. So when you're protecting yourself, ultimately you shouldn't be feeling like I have to survive. You should be feeling like God wants me to survive, right? So it says Chacham ein Bereishai. So it says every Jewish person has a flame on top of him. And now there's the wick, which is the body, and then there is the oil. The oil are the Torah mitzvahs that we do. So basically what we said is in order to keep the fire, our connection with God, we have to leave ourselves and do Torah mitzvahs. We have to leave ourselves and do Torah mitzvahs. And when we do Torah mitzvahs, that fuels our bodies, which we'll talk more about the body later, but that fuels our body. And then God is able to reside on top of us, and God's energy is able to reside on top of our heads. So that's what it means. A wise person is always looking, how do I connect to that godly force on top of me? And that's why his eyes are in his head, meaning he's looking up. How do I connect? And how does he do it? Through Torah mitzvahs. So we explained what is the significance of a mitzvah. We said everything in the world is created by God's desire. He wills everything in. However, there are two types of creations. There are some creations which we do not see God's desire in them. In fact, we might think they're anti-God, but really he created them, really he wants them. Or the things which we might say are mundane. Look, they're not really God's, they're mine, or they're this, or that's the way it is. God is hidden in the world. Then you have mitzvahs. Mitzvahs are conduits which God is revealed. When you do a mitzvah, ultimately every mitzvah has a certain point that you'll find yourself doing it for no other reason besides the fact that God wants it.
So, I have a hard time with that because I go through my life every day and I know God is here with me and I don't always think about God though. That's the hardest part for me. So if I do a mitzvah to take care of my family, then I don't think that I'm doing it for God. I think I'm doing the mitzvah that taking care of my family. It's very hard for me to always remember that I'm doing it for God, not for.
Well, so it's interesting. It says in the Tanya earlier, talks about this a little bit.
And that's the really hard thing.
But there's two things with mitzvahs. One thing with mitzvahs is like, let's say, I'll give you an example. Let's say you put tefillin on every day. And then you're doing it every day and everything like that, and it becomes habit. It even feels good. you
Oh,
know,
absolutely.
and even feels like, oh, now when you went to Hawaii and you didn't have tefillin,
I know.
so
I put it on the shelf right next to my car because
yeah,
I wanted to put it in
yeah.
my suitcase. I shut my trunk and I walked away and I totally
Well, I'm
forgot.
glad you didn't leave it outside. But God always brings you to a place where He challenges your mitzvah. So you get to Hawaii, I don't have to fill in. I just forget it for a week. Or no, I'll get to fill in. I'll find a way to do it. Or sometimes He even challenges us in a way that we're not able to put it on, but that one makes us want to put it on with more intensity because we missed it. So every mitzvah has a point where we make the sacrifices for the mitzvahs. So in the Tanya earlier quotes the Talmud. It says in the olden days, every Torah subject people would study, they would study 100 times, and one more. And it said that the one more time, 101, was more difficult than the whole 100, because the whole 100, that was what they needed to do to retain it. The 101 had like no direct reason, you know. Um, there was no direct reason. 101 was like just for God. So sometimes when we do mitzvahs, God brings us to it. Sometimes we do mitzvahs, we grow in the mitzvahs. Sometimes, a lot of times, we do mitzvahs and we get so used to them, and then we fall in them, we make a mistake, and it's a reminder from God, concentrate more, or do extra in the mitzvah, do something which is a little bit beyond your comfort zone, or something which is, a little bit. So like sometimes you might have somebody who says, like, let's say, I care about my family, I protect my family. So, maybe, do you ever pray for your family? Maybe they never pray for their family. They'll be like, oh no, I don't do that. Well, it's like, if you want to do it as a mitzvah, if you pray for your family, do some spiritual protection for your family, that will show that will teach you that you're really doing it because it's a mitzvah. You understand?
Right, but the problem I have is always remembering that I'm doing it for
Yeah,
God,
that's a
not
problem.
for myself or not for my
So
family.
that's a problem that everyone has. That's a problem that everyone has. We just,
Yeah, because
so that's actually what this chapter is talking about. It's like I'm doing mitzvahs and everything like that,
Right,
but
that's
like
right.
I just can't flip that internal switch in me.
Right, because the second I walk out of here, my mind is, okay, I gotta get in my car, I gotta go
Yeah.
back to my house, I got a realtor coming later today. It's hard to.
You're selling your house?
I will be, I think. I promised myself that I would wait a year
Yeah.
after my wife died to actually do it. I've been debating back and forth between whether I'm gonna rent it out or, I don't wanna live in it anymore. That's the big thing.
Understood. No, understood. That's
And
understood.
so it's been a hard decision, but while I was in Hawaii, I sat out on the beach and cleared my mind and, tried to think about what I think is best for me. I think I am gonna sell it, but I'll be selling it into a down market, and so I don't know if I want to get that kind of money for it, because I know if I wait long enough, I'll get more money for it again, but
It'll all be at the right time. I'll be at the good.
there's just all kinds of things to think
Yeah.
about.
Well, um, you just put these things in God's hands, because you know, there's what I think about a lot is like, so I'm like, oh, I sell my house, make the money, whatever it is.
Uh,
But in God's perspective, it's like there's other things. There's like a whole big picture. You can't just choose your house. Like God chooses your house, and God chooses what you make on it, and God chooses all those things. So you put it in God's hands. And you say, hey God, if you want me to sell it, however you want me to do it, you. Well, anyway, so I'm just sorry for this. Well, so I just want to say that it's like this is the battle of the Beit that we're talking about here. But what we're saying ultimately here is when we do the mitzvahs and we do connect to it, that is the purpose of our life, and that's the greatest thing. And it says here, like, even a tzaddik who's perfect and he's always thinking about God, you can't compare his connection to God to when he does a mitzvah, because when he does this mitzvah, it's like the mitzvahs are the deepest thing we can do to connect to God, because like the purpose of creation is the purpose of everything, which has ultimately no reason, which is just God Himself, His desire. When we do a mitzvah, we connect to that. So that's what we're saying here. And the Alter Rebbe is actually going through, and he's saying, even if you're a really righteous person, you're already connected to infinite. There's no end to infinite. And when you do another mitzvah, another Torah study and everything like that, you connect deeper and deeper and deeper. So this is, on the other hand, when you just love God or you're just conscious of God, it's almost like, it's funny, you're really holy and you're just loving God and you're thinking about God the whole day, but it's slightly self-absorbed because
Yeah.
it's about your feeling, it's about your connection. But when you do a mitzvah, there's always going to be mitzvahs where someone will be like, come on, David, what are you doing? You'll be like, a mitzvah. Why are you doing it? Be like, I don't really know. So that point has a lot of holiness in it because what you're doing is you're putting all your eggs in the basket. You're saying, here, God, I'm doing this for you. I'm not doing this for any other reason. You know I'm doing this for you. So that's what we're holding here in the Tanya. And the Alter Rebbe is talking more spiritually. And we'll talk about it in the Kabbalah classes in a different order.
Yeah, I'm looking forward.
Yeah, those are going to be really good. We're going to talk about it in a different order, but that is basically what the Zohar is saying. The Zohar is saying is don't think that your life is worthless because you're not doing things purely, or you're not always doing the right thing, or you're forgetting about the right thing, or you're forgetting about the right intention, because that's your body. And when you do a mitzvah there, the God's presence cannot manifest itself in the world without a wick, which is your body, which is that stinky body, like that
Sure.
might be self-absorbed. But when you do a mitzvah, which is not self-absorbed, when you do something which is, for God, which is a mitzvah, and again, mitzvahs will always bring you to that point of sacrifice if your head is in the right direction. Like, a lot of times we'll say, like, I'm going to do this. I'm going to give this to tzedakah. And the next day we get hit with a bill and we're like, oh, we're always going to be caught in that moment where we need to do something good. We need to do a positive mitzvah, as well as something we can exercise and always think about is like, hey, I'm doing this mitzvah. Like, how can I improve it? How can I gift something more to God? How can I embellish it? Actually, it's interesting because when the Rebbe spoke about helping Israel, the Rebbe said, say in chapter Tehillim, say the Psalms, and the Rebbe also said, do a hiddur mitzvah. Make one of your mitzvahs beautiful. How do you make a mitzvah beautiful? Sometimes a little more concentration. I mean, if you're buying esrog, if you're making kiddush on Friday night, buy a nicer wine, or that if you appreciate wines, whatever it is. So that is what we're talking about here. That is the goal here, and we're going to go. It's a long chapter, but ultimately we're going to go through and we're going to say that's the purpose of creation. The purpose of creation is to bring that. I'm going to stop here because it just gets a little complicated. It's to bring that holiness. So a lot of times we beat up the vessel and we beat up the wick, and your wick and your cup and your candle. That's the purpose of creation. So when you avoid lighting your wick, which might be selfish, albeit, and Tanya says it is, but when you invest in that, nonetheless, that's actually the purpose of our lives. So we'll stop there.
Okay.
All right. Well, yeah. I mean, no,